Welcome, survivors, seekers, and thrivers. I'm your host, Shari Leigh Roberts, psychic medium, energy healer, and living proof that you can transform your pain into power. Each episode, we dive into trauma healing, developing your intuitive gifts, and reclaiming your life. Get ready for real stories, deep wisdom, and a little laughter along the way. We are going to talk about the process of death-to-rebirth.
Thank you so much, Shari. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here too with you. So I'm really grateful that you have me on today.
Oh, yeah, going to be and conversation. How about we begin with the idea of sharing how you kicking about how we're feeling. Oh, the they are you have what you to slip beer and others.
Yeah. So I think, you know, like everything, it starts in childhood, right? And so I grew up, my father worked for the government. We moved every few years. I lived overseas, and I learned to see the face of God in all things, in Hindu deities, in Buddhism, in the land, in the water, in ritual, and in community. And it was really beautiful. And then as I grew up, it felt so important to me. And I didn't always understand what I was feeling. I didn't always understand what it was calling me to. And I would have flashbacks to past lives, and I would have inklings to say something to someone that, you know, why would I be at age 12 giving life and marriage advice to a person in their 50s, you know, like, but yet I was. And so I was just like, well, I don't know. People just talk to me and tell me things. And so it wasn't until my mid-20s I went through what I call my quarter life crisis that, who am I? What am I doing in my life? That my friend's mother did Reiki on me. And in that session, she and I both remembered that out of my solar plexus, this angry, frustrated cave woman was just walking back and forth, just dragging a stick against the metal bars caging her in. And I was spooked. And all of a sudden, this huge burst of energy happened, and she was gone. And my friend's mom said, when that happened, I saw a lion jump out of you. And I said, I saw a scary cave woman disappear. Where'd she go? But then as it turns out, that woman was me. That was my inner wildness that had been caged and suppressed for so many years. And that was just like, please let me out. And so once she was out, it was like, oh, it's on now. And so, so then I was like, okay, I had a taste of this. I need to go with it. So I became a Reiki master teacher. I explored some new age community groups that just did not feel right. So I backed out of those and learned some kind of energy healing modalities that also didn't feel right, backed out of those. And I thought, maybe I'm getting this wrong. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And so I backed out entirely. I threw everything away, everything, all my Doreen Virtue books and oracle cards and all of it. Yeah. And then after my son was born, I felt the calling come back again. And this time it was louder and so loud that I couldn't resist because it was affecting my health. And I was having chronic tonsillitis and strep. And so finally, facing the prospect of having to get tonsillectomy surgery, I sat at my desk and I said, literally anything else, like, what is happening? Why is this happening? And that's when I heard the words, like, you need to become a shaman. And I looked around the room and I was alone and I thought, surely there was someone in here with me. But then I get on Google, as we all know is jokingly called the Oracle. And and I Googled, what is a shaman? And then it was like, everything in my body lit up. A shaman is a bridge between the non-ordinary and ordinary reality, or said differently, between spirit and human. The shaman is a healer. The shaman is a listener. The shaman serves the community and shows up to be of service as a conduit for divine energy, divine truth, divine love, and presence. So that way we can witness each other in their truth, in their lived experience, without caving, without responding and needing to fix, without judging. We can sit here and witness someone in the beauty and the complication of their life and say, I see you. I'm not running away. I'm going to hold your hand, and you can be strong and become your own salvation. And I think that's something that's so important to put out there, is that as shaman, I am this bridge. Yes, I will happily talk about the death-to-rebirth process, but in my years of apprenticeships in Egyptian mysteries, core shamanism, and Celtic spirituality, I finally came to realize that all I am doing is I'm becoming very adept at navigating the really tumultuous, difficult, dark, if you will, emotional landscapes of people's pain, in order to say, hey, I've got your hand, I'm walking you through this, I'm not going to fold. Here's the gold, here's the light that you've been searching for, but it has been buried underneath all of this crap. Let's bring it out together. But it has to be your choice. Do you want to bring it out? Are you ready for what that will do for you? Because it can change your life. And, and not everyone's ready, and that's okay. That's their choice. But to give people their sovereignty back, to give them that agency to say, you get to choose. I just get to hold your hand and guide you through it and remind you that you're not alone, nor should you ever feel like you have to be alone. And that's the work I do as a medicine woman. When it comes to, is it okay if I go into the death to rebirth process?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So part of the work I do is, energy healing, sure, channeling, sure, Akashic, cacao, sure. But the main medicine that people, like you mentioned, tend to come to me about is the repressed and suppressed grief and sometimes rage. And because they really do go hand in hand, because they are parts of love that get suppressed in the body and then cause physical ailments and problems, not only physically, but energetically and emotionally, and also mentally. And then how people's lives then become built around that, or are shaped and, problematized because of it. And so people show up to me because there's something deep in there that they need help getting out. And so the death to rebirth process is basically saying, metaphorical death in this way is saying, you've reached the end of something. A chapter has reached conclusion. You've found completion or closure, and now it's time to move on. But in this world that we live in that is obsessed with life, the idea of moving on from something comes with a lot of fear. Who will I be on the other side of change? What does it mean if I'm not defined by this thing or relationship or career any longer? What if I mess up? Because there's perfectionism that we're obsessed with. Yeah. And so death is facing all of those things, all of those hang-ups, in order to then move on without the hang-ups. And then the two part of the death to rebirth part, the two is really like gestation. It's how do we come back into ourselves? How do we, in the depths of the caves within, those dark landscapes within ourselves, how do we find our soul light again and re-embody it, remembering who we were as that beautiful child that came in the world and saw fairies in the trees and felt that anything was possible, because it is. And so much of our obsession with youth in this world is because they got it. They have the memory that everything is possible, everything is connected, and everything is magic and beautiful. We just do a great job of teaching them that they're wrong, and then spending the rest of our lives obsessing about how to get back there. And so then it's about coming back into the soul and saying, who am I without what my family, teachers, friends asked or expected me to be? Who am I without what society teaches us to be? Who am I? Who am I for me? And then the rebirth, or as I like to call it, re-being, because it's not about starting new and restarting, right? It's not rebirth in that way. It's re-being in that we're becoming the most authentic, if you will, soul self. We are becoming that light in the embodied self, in the present moment of each day, aligned or possibly allowed to, if we get knocked out every so often, because life does happen, it does knock us out of flow, but aligned with flow as this present soul self. And what I mean by flow is our intuition and our guidance with God, with the universe, with nature, with the oneness that exists in the world outside of the human constraints that we've created. So, yeah, that's the death to rebirth process.
First, I don't want being letting people know that they are seeing and those two very important factors cause us to have a lot of the other regularly important is that they are healing cars they so well I could go on, but will you figure how you get people down to their daily level to begin looking at and addressing all of those energy blocks.
Oh, that's a great question. So I think the first thing that I try to do is, well, let me take a breath with that and make sure I'm answering from the heart, not from the mind.
Okay.
I think the first and the most important thing that I try to always start with someone is that they have choice. They have agency. And that their choice, whether or not it's what I, quote, want to hear or they, quote, should say, that their choice is honored because it is their body, it is their soul, it is their spirit, their energy, and in their own mind. It's not about me showing up in razzle dazzle, let me impress you with what I can do. Like that's ego, that's my ego.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important that I let them know that, like, I am here for them. I will show up for them. If they want to go surface and keep it really chill until we have built trust and they've learned how I work, I'll do that with them. If they're like, let's get deep in there, and I feel like, whoop, no, it feels like they're pushing themselves because that's the way they do it. They're the warrior and blah, blah. But it actually feels like they need to approach with softness. I will say, like, hey, look, I can do that. But let's also consider this other approach and how that can look. And so by telling them that I will listen to whatever that they want to do within reason, if spirit is yelling at me like, don't do that, I'm going to follow spirit. So that God is like number one and client number two, and then Martha gets number 3. So building trust, building that avenue for advocacy for themselves, which I think is so important because our modern world is so rife with giving away our power, and being said, tell me what to do. No. You tell me what you're feeling, and I can listen, and I can help shape and ask questions to clarify and refine what you're feeling in your body so that you know for yourself what's right for you. I think that's the most important part, because once that trust and that style of feeling like, okay, I can read your energy, you can read my energy, and sometimes that just takes 6 minutes of talking. Like, it doesn't have to be years, right? Hardly, actually. I don't think I would ever say that. But once that's accomplished, then when we go in, there is that sense of the hand-holding. Like, okay, I don't feel so alone. Martha's with me. And and I will tell people as I'm going in, okay, I'm feeling this coming up. This is what I'm feeling and seeing. How does that resonate with you? Or do you want to talk about it? Do you just want to breathe through it? This morning I had a business Akashic session where I open the Akashic records for the individual and their business, and to kind of see, like, what's the vibe, where are the blocks, how's the flow going. And it was funny because with this individual, the mother figure came in and was like, whoa, you would not have thought, like, a mom dynamic would be something that would cause hindrance in one's business. And yet there it was. And so, and then of course giving him the options and saying, here are all the things. And again, building trust, creating a space for agency is, I think, the main thing. Because at that point, then their intuition and their body, so their body's wisdom and their intuition, which is their soul's wisdom, come together, and they're like, oh yeah, like alert, 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 yes to this, alert, 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 no to this, And I think when people start to feel that and it aligns with what I'm saying spirit is saying to share, then they start to realize, like, oh wow, I am driving this experience, and it's real, and it's in my body, and it's moving, and this is what I've been asking for. Yeah, so I think that's how we get to those deep, I shouldn't say dark, because it's not always dark, but that's how we get to those deep layers.
Well, they are key. I like you. Also, make sure that my clients are ready to get to the truth.
Yes.
We can only handhold and guide. I come across people who want me to do it to the hard work for them. Now,
Right.
I am now down pulling the half of the way that you and I carry in helping them, but the bottom line only we can undo the real work. Once you've gone in and you've uncovered enough at the point for them to move forward. What are the day to day tools that you give them in order to hold that energetic
Yeah.
polaris. Now, like most of us, we do go up, and then there are times, a couple steps back. Yeah, what is that you have them implement to try to maintain the higher energetic vibration until it's time to take it up more.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question, because I think so we live in a culture that wants to go, do, right? And so
Yep.
giving space for rest and integration is equally equally very important, as important as the deep shadow work. Because ultimately, if we think about it this way, if you have gone in and you mined a diamond out of the coal, and you bring the diamond out and you're paving this beautiful road within yourself made of diamonds, and you throw it on the ground, and then you go right back and you start mining more, rather than waiting until the diamond, I don't know, this is an awful metaphor, but until it melts into the other diamonds. Like, you need to let it settle in and find its space to just become part of it. If you don't, you end up having a lot of loose gravel. And if you're trying to bring a whole chariot worth of stuff, that gravel is going to fall out underneath the wheel. So you can't build on gravel. You build on cement. So, like, we need to make sure that all that beautiful wisdom and empowerment and presence that we've uncovered settles in. So I have clients, okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks. I'm like, no, it feels like 5 weeks. And they're like, okay. I'm like, we can check in. You and I can mentally check in 2 weeks. But we're going to give your body 5 to just rest. And then usually something happens where there's something that clicks, and then there we are already. Because I think there's something else with that that's important to mention. So we have our time for integration, which is embodying that which we've unearthed within the self. That's huge. And the tools that I share, of course, are always dependent on the individual. It's always going to be, right? Like, spirit is like, this one, breath work. This person needs to eat better. This one, stop smoking,
Yeah.
And so, so sometimes it's going to be a grounding visualization every morning, or a breath work. Sometimes it's a eat this or more of this and less of that. And sometimes it's just sleep, or actually one of my, sorry, my hair is was doing something crazy, so I had to fix it real quick. One time it was do nothing in your normal routine and go play. Get your kids out of school or pick them up after school, go to the arcade, go to Trader Joe's and get all the ice cream and chips and then come home and watch a movie, even though it's Tuesday. Like, and she was like, what? And I'm like, yes, go play. And so it really depends on the individual, but I think breath work is one of the most impactful, especially when it's a down regulating, like a nervous system calming breath, like coherence breath, box breath. Those are my favorite for just staying grounded and giving space for that. But what I wanted to say that was another important part of integration is that if we think about life as a great spiral, sometimes I'll have a client who will come and we work through some pretty intense stuff. And then a year later, they reach out. They're like, hey, I was feeling great. And then like a couple months ago, I started feeling really yucky or started feeling like this or that. And like, I thought we worked on this. And I'm like, oh, we did work on that. And we did do the work that we said we did. But now that spiral has deepened. And now you're at a lower level, closer to the source root ball issue that needs to be resolved. You're a layer deeper. And each time the spiral curves, you'll be a layer deeper and a layer deeper until you do get to that root ball. And what's beautiful is once you get there and you work through that, like, all the layer work that you've done has built you up to face this beautiful thing. And I think that's something with psychedelics can be great when used with a medicine person and when it's intentional and it's calling you. But psychedelics will take you straight to that root ball. And a lot of people really could use the resilience training of the spiral journey. And so as they go each layer, they learn more about themselves, they embody more of their courage, their light, their presence, and then they're able to tackle that lower level with more presence and love and commitment to themselves. So that way when they do get to that root ball, it's achievable. We've been here. We know what this feels like. I can handle the big boss. And then once we do, it just disappears. And it's like, wait, what was that thing I cared about? Huh.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I wanted to just go from way up here right to the big ball. Well, after not being allowed to deal with that, God knew better. I began embracing each level down towards the above. You said they are beautifully when you do go layer by layer and you get there. You are looking at that now through a lens of love and boy, that is a game changer. Well, we all know that love true pictures love self brings us into the followed her willingness with God with everyone, everything. I also can relate to spirit coming in and guiding you differently, depending on the client. That is the way it happens for me too. Therefore, I never found that set course meant for healing to be that helpful. You don't have the person to hold your hand to understand you and to get that divine information that helps them get into alignment, get that inner peace. We could go on, but let's take it go away. Jumping ahead or into a different part of death to rebirth. You do help people who are grieving.
Yes.
I assume they're grieving in most cases is the loss of loved one. Okay, but it could be the loss of a job, the ending of a marriage.
Exactly.
We all like you share a bit about that work.
I would love to. Yes. So you're right. It's grieving loss, but it's also grieving a change in one's phase in life. But sometimes the grief that comes up can be, energy that was never processed. Like when we process trauma, right? We shake out, we scream, we laugh, we cry, we, whatever. Can come out in many different ways. And so sometimes the grief we see is also childhood joy, that was buried for so long. So let me scale back. Let me go back to the beginning, if you will. So I became my second Celtic spirituality apprenticeship that I did. At the end, we were in a journey, and it was like, okay, you get to meet the goddess who called you forward into the work, into doing this year-long journey together. And at the end, I was like, okay, I hope it's Bridget, because Bridget is spring, and she's maiden, and she's happy and sunshine. And then, sure enough, I heard the word. I felt this black figure with red lips, and I heard the word bive, which spells B-A-D-B, but it's pronounced B-I-V-E. So Bive, B-A-B-B. I know it's Irish and Gaelic and difficult for Americans, but nonetheless, I was like, oh boy, I feel like this is not the same energy as Bridget. And so I looked it up and I was like, oh my gosh, that's right. Bive is one part of the Morrigan, who is the triple goddess of death. And so we sat with these goddesses who called us forward into the work, and I said, okay, Bive, you tell me, why are we here? I'm listening. And then she said, I don't remember what she said, but there was something, oh, that's right. She showed me a room full of women wearing a black veil over their faces and just, which was totally spooky. And I was like, I'm out. And she was like, no, you're not. Got me by the collar. I was like, this is your future. I was like, oh my God, this is awful. But okay. And so then I was like, what the hell do I do with that information? What was that? And then sure enough, the next time we met, she had her friend be a guest speaker, and her friend was talking about keening. It's K-E-E-N-I-N-G, keening. And in Irish, it's the ban keensha or the mana keensha. And there are far keensha. There's male keensas, but the mana or the women keenshas. And the keensha is crier or keener. And ban, B-E-A-N, is woman. So ban keensha, I'm a ban keensha. I am a collective of women known as the mana keensha. You could see it that way. So to be a keener is to be someone who would grieve and be the mournful singers, the lamenters at awake, to help that soul transition on, but also to help drum up the deep-seated grief and mourning of the collective, to drum it up and out of their body, so that way they could liberate their form, their somatic bodies, their emotions, their energies, like they could release their physical body of those emotions and energy. So that way, when the wake was over 3 days later, people could go on and move on. Yeah. And so it was a group of 3 women, all in black with black lace veils, and they would mourn and sing and rock and drum and throw themselves on the body or on the casket, rather, not on the body. That would be weird. But I don't know, maybe it happened. Yeah. I don't know. And they would pull their hair and, oh, John, why did you leave us like this? John, you left your wife Mary. And everyone's like, oh my God, why would they say that? And they're like crying it out. And then, but right. Yeah. And so it was a whole process, but there was one lead woman and 2 that supported her. And what she was, and we are this human bridge, like the shaman, right? We are this conduit, this vessel for this aspect of God, or this aspect of divine energy, which is that lamenting, mournful, sorrowful cry, to be heard and witnessed, because that is a huge part of being human, is to see and know loss and to be able to love through that. And so for me, being an embodiment of this aspect, maybe it's not the most popular or desirable, and in many cases, Bive, also kind of seen archetypally as the banshee or the banshee, would be known to be the woman who would be screaming at a house at night, wearing all black, and pointing and screaming at the house. And if you heard it, the sound of the banshee, well, then it meant that someone in your family was about to die. And so did people like her? No, right? Was I excited? Terrified. I was terrified. But now, what I did then is I called that woman. I said, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I have to work with you. This is it. Like, I don't know. How do I get into this? And she said, well, maybe we can work together. And so we spent a 9-month apprenticeship together, where she helped me cultivate this relationship with this frequency of sound, of the shamanic approach to it, which is really about getting in the body and into the pelvis, because that's where we hold so much grief and rage, and men and women alike, and non-binary people, all the same in the pelvis. And so she helped me learn, how do we hold space? How do we guide someone to that edge of what feels like insanity, in order to say, I trust my body to let go. I'm not going to control with my mind. I'm going to let go. so that way we can let it out. Because like I was starting to say earlier, the way that I practice grief tending is really about a deeper, it's not about helping someone grieve the loss of a loved one, though it can be if needed. It's really about meeting anyone where they are in their point in life to say there is grief or rage or suppressed wildness and pleasure and sensuality, whatever it is, it's deep in there. And so one of the ways we get in there is, you know, when in sessions, I'm pointing at my table, in sessions, I will oftentimes feel her speak through me. And so rather than talking, I just start singing. I'll just go, and I'm not a good singer, but I'm just like, ooh, you know, and then she's like, ooh, you know, and then she like tells me like what pitch or note or whatever to do. And I do it. And then usually I can feel the person's energy like, whoa, what is this? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh God, there it goes. And it just comes out and blows out.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's the most beautiful. And yes, it is scary at first, but only because you have to be committed to yourself. You have to be committed to meet yourself and say to the self that has been repressed or hidden, the wildness, whatever, to say, I see you, I love you, I'm sorry it took me so long, here I am, and I won't ever leave you again. When we are committed to that way, then she shows us she's not scary at all. She's actually the most loving, comforting, empowering, funny. She's hilarious. She is that at first glance, that creepy old woman in the back of the room giggling to herself that no one wants to talk to. But then when you go and sit with her, you realize, oh, woman, you got your shit figured out. Yeah. this whole time. And you have the candy, too, because you've been stashing it over here. You know? Yeah. So that's very much Vive to me. She is the grandmother, the crone, the mother, the love, the truth. She's amazing. And she is patient, but she doesn't suffer fools. So she won't work with anyone who isn't serious. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love. I really love that about her.
Yeah, power. Okay. I heard from the US and the yes, where the Celtic drama and vibe come from.
Yeah, so I am not formally Irish. I am very much American and have been for I think seven to nine generations. But my family is Scots-Irish. So my maiden name, Allison, actually comes from the borderlands of Scotland. And what's fascinating is, okay, I'm right. I've started to get into history, but they're like, don't bore people. That's a nerdy Martha thing. But I'll say very quickly. So Ali's son is actually a Nordic name. And so there's like, I don't know, like 4% or 1% like Scandinavian in our bloodline. So I think what happened is that there was probably like an early Scandinavian, early indigenous to what is now Scotland or the borderlands, coalescing, and then the name Allison came in that way. But yes, so the borderland Scots weren't Highlanders. The Scots didn't love them. The British didn't love them. Kick them out. Go to Ireland. Irish were like, we don't know you. We don't like you. Head on over. So, I mean, I'm synthesizing many years of both community and discord. But so Scottish, and then also we're in Ireland in the northern part. So between where kind of County Donegal and Northern Ireland meet, that kind of area. And then over to Virginia, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and North Carolina is kind of where my ancestry comes. But really around the Appalachian. And then the Appalachian Mountains is where a lot of the Scots-Irish people landed. And that's largely because it was familiar. Those mountains, tectonically speaking, like geologically speaking, they are a part of the International Appalachian Trail, which actually goes through Ireland. And so, yeah, it's fascinating. You know, a long time ago, Pangea, Ireland, has mountains that formed alongside the Appalachian Trail, and so, or as a part of. So it felt familiar. It felt like home. And so for me, going through my pathway of different apprenticeships, learning, absorbing, growing, expanding, practicing, and then coming back to the drawing board, I came to a point where I was like, I needed something else. And it was the Ban Kinsha calling me. It was Vive, but I didn't know. And I found myself thinking, well, I could maybe go to Peru and do one of these, you know, apprenticeships with the living tradition. I have to ask permission. Like, I said, but something doesn't feel right with that. I said, what is it? And that was when my dad and I had a conversation. He said, you know, you might think I'm very nerdy, but I've been doing a lot of ancestry and been learning a lot about our Scots-Irish heritage. And I was like, it's a, you know, the ding, ding, ding went off in my brain. And then I was like, I need to look into that. And then, of course, like, well, yeah, I've always loved this kind of Celtic mythology and Celtic culture. And I just never really thought about it because I wasn't ready. I liked it, but I didn't know why I liked it. And then I realized, oh, this is why. Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
I'm actually in Richmond, Virginia.
oh my God, I am about a half an hour from Virginia. I am in North Carolina.
Oh my gosh.
World. Oh, so you are the second guest this week. They have talked about into higher rituals, goddess, furious. Now, I can't help but think that because, like you, I have always been drawn to Ireland of the spirituality, rituals, stones, all of that. I was all over Europe last year and early this year. I never went to Ireland. And I'm again feeling that pull to go. Well, I'm thinking you might be the validation I need to go.
Girl, I will tell you about a year and a half ago, I took a 10-day pilgrimage to Ireland because I'm writing this book. It's a guided journey through the death-to-rebirth process with Irish goddesses guiding people and using breath work to as a tool and modality to do the release work. I'm very excited about it. Fingers crossed it's out next year. But part of it was I was working with my book coach and she was like, something is missing. Like you're doing this, you're keeping your hands out and you're keeping people at a distance something needs to snap in you, and I don't know what it is. It's like you need to go back to the land or something. I said, wait, say that again? She goes, you need to go back to the land? Like, I don't know, like go to the mountains or go to Ireland or something. And she was just being playful, but I was like,
Yeah.
I felt it in my spine. I was like, no, I have to go. I have to go. And 3 months later, everything was booked, figured out, done. And my husband was like, go, do it, be, you know.
Yeah.
And I spent 9 full days in the land just by myself, which I had never done before because, you know, was afraid to be by myself for lots of reasons, including having survived attempted kidnapping and sexual assault. So being there, yeah, it's you know, it's a part of my past, but but being on the land by myself, learning the first day. So it's the first day I was there. I went straight to Loch Crew, which is called Slieve na Cali, which is the Cailleach's kind of place. It's the mound in is it Meath, County Meath, and so about like an hour's half, something like that, drive from Dublin. And I went straight there, and I went up. Whew, that's a strong hill, but I got up there with like 80, you know, sheep, and I got to the top, and there was a man, and it was just me and one man. And in my body's experience was, if a stranger sees a woman, he will take what he wants, and that's that, okay. Right? And all men want that thing. And I know that was my trauma talking, but, you know, and he started walking towards me, and I said, Goddess, you called me here. You can't do this to me. Like, what is happening? And she said, just breathe. And I, you know, and I'm breathing, and I'm a breathwork teacher, so I knew how to not hyperventilate, and so I was breathing. And he walked by me, and he just said, good day. And he walked on, and she goes, you are safe. And I was like, and so that then proceeded the following 9 days, where I was like, one part exploring, one part listening to the goddess, one part crying nonstop. Like, it was amazing. But being there, it's not about the perfect this, or I have to be at this time for this thing. Just being there and breathing with the land is all you have to do to be open. And the wisdom, the memories, the medicine comes flooding in. And you or anyone who wants to talk about traveling to Ireland, I'm so game for. I was just talking to a woman last week about plotting her pilgrimage trip to Ireland too. And so that's something that I'm feeling really called to do, because I too, you were validation for me too. I too need to go back. I can feel it.
Telling me that you were where you needed to be at that time. And to get over your belief that every man pose they are true was worth that. Healing and but also they are surged in your bed like woo.
Yeah.
I am bad. Okay, darling, we are in so I really like I'm going to anything you would like to put out in the universe.
Something that's been coming in for me with friends and clients is reminding all of us that we are not asking too much by asking to be seen, loved, healed, and asking for the joy that our soul deserves to feel. Whatever that looks like or feels like or manifests as for anyone on an individual level, you are never asking for too much. The universe does not know boundaries. God knows no boundaries to love and truth and providing. You just have to be open. You have to believe your worth, and that's a huge, huge hurdle to come over, and I totally get that. But you are allowed to ask. You are not too much.
And be open to accepting and embodying all the beauty, love, and goodness.
Thank you for listening. If today's conversation resonated with you and you're ready to explore your own healing journey or intuitive gifts, I'd love to work with you. I offer psychic medium readings, energy healing sessions, and intuitive development guidance at shariroberts.org. And if you're not quite ready for a session, but want to be a part of the conversation in a supportive community, join my private Facebook group. The link is in the show notes. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. This is Shari Leigh Roberts. Until next time, remember, you're never alone.